morning, everyone.
Ooh, fast and loose with the time of day there.
You can only listen to this in
It's
the
actually
morning.
the opposite of fast and loose. He's being very rigid with the time of day.
It's my
Well,
new
with
thing,
his expectations.
being rigid. You're only allowed to listen to this in the morning, everyone, because that's when we had to record it, because we're three busy men.
I actually prefer
welcome along.
busy boys. We're busy boys.
Don't call me a man. It makes things too real. Welcome everybody to the Popture podcast. This is our annual look forward at the year that will be, but has not been yet. It is, of course, every film we will watch in 2024, part one. We were just speaking before the pod. I'm AJ. There's Richard and Jeremy. Hey guys, welcome. That like every year we do these retrospectives and then these look forwards, and the retrospectives being cumulatively 5 hours long makes total sense. But every year these look forwards are also part one and part two, and it is so embarrassing to be the kind of dude, the kind of talker,
boy,
film Twitter dude.
Film Twitter dude boy. Thank you, Richard, for reminding me we're using boy today. That can talk about movies we haven't seen for 4 to 5 hours. So I wouldn't think this would need to be two parts, but history has taught us.
Well, I think as well that couple of things we're playing with there. One is that I've got to fly to Christchurch in a few hours, so this is going to be two parts, even if we breezed through these. But also, I think it would take less time if we didn't dwell on things like how long it takes. So let's just crack into it. We're going to be covering January through to the end of June today, and film that we all could have seen by now. A couple of films we could have all seen by now, because it's the end of January when we're recording this, but the Mean Girls musical.
Poor January. Yeah, I am actually going to see this. I'm going to see this next week at some point.
Oh, I thought we could go together when I was down, but alright.
This is Richard in the edit booth. We did not go together, but I went by myself and loved it.
You can probably come, actually.
No, let's go to the Beekeeper together.
Hey, bro, I can probably get an invite.
The Beekeeper! Oh, man.
It's funny. The Beekeeper looks like... I'm not the first to say this. I'm not trying to claim I invented this joke by any means, but it looks like a fake movie that would be in, 30 Rock.
Did you just come
Or,
up with it?
in The Holiday, where the character cuts trailers... It's one of, and there's that trailer with James Franco and Lindsay Lohan. Very similar vibe.
Yeah. 30 Rock, of course, written by Tina Fey, who also wrote both Mean Girls. So
Seamless.
Circling back round, if we do want to dwell on Mean Girls at all. What are you guys? I have seen such divisive buzz.
Yeah, it's
about
interesting
Mean
because
Girls
obviously the film is out, so we've seen a lot about it. But when it first came out, people were like, "Holy shit! This is." Reinvented for Gen Z, this is so great. And now I'm seeing a lot of comparisons between the original cast recording from Broadway and the movie recording, and there's a lot less it's a lot less cunty.
Chutzpah. Right. Cunty, the modern day chutzpah.
Yeah.
I mean, my first thinking around when the trailer came out is they did the whole thing with Wonka where they didn't announce it was a musical. They're hiding it's a musical. I actually think that in this case has been unhelpful to the movie, because I don't think people are ready for a movie that looks on the surface like a remake of Mean Girls. But I think if you called it Mean Girls the musical, people are ready for that.
Yeah, because they were just
this is a new spin.
A bold new take from Tina Fey, and it's like, what is the bold new take? You're not telling me, though.
Yeah, what could it be?
What could it possibly be?
The S in the title is a dollar symbol. No, it wasn't a dollar symbol. There was a one of the things in the title's a musical note. I think I can't remember which letter.
A treble clef, perhaps.
Yeah,
We're talking treble clefs.
I was never really that excited about. Even, I mean, I loved Mean Girls. Was smack dab in the middle of my sort of prime pop culture movie years back in the day, and I also am a huge fan of musicals, as we've talked about before. However,
discussed.
because I am a huge fan of musicals, I was not looking forward to the Mean Girls musical movie, because the Mean Girls musical is meh.
Wow. What a burn. Could this perhaps go in your burn book, Jeremy?
Quite possibly, yeah. No, I mean, the Mean Girls musical basically tried to follow in the footsteps of the Legally Blonde musical, which was kind of a come-from-nowhere surprise that it actually had some decent songs and some, when it came onto Broadway. And the Mean Girls musical was like, hey, we're also a comedy movie in a millennial zeitgeist kind of vibe, and has that sort of wry sense of self-knowing humor. Let's go, let's do it. And it just didn't land with the same splash. And I also, I'm not. Am I gonna? You know what? When this comes to streaming, I will watch it just for the completist in me. So hey, look forward 12 months to what I thought about it.
Nice.
But
we're not starting with we're not starting with a really a high bar of expectations. So hey, who knows? This might defy my expectations.
I think that my main issue with it is, and this is just because the cast are unknowns, but I'm so used to seeing such famous people associated with New Girl, with Mean Girls these days, that movie stars movie stars, and I don't recognize really any of the cast of Mean
I think
Girls
you're showing
musical.
your age a little bit there, AJ.
Well, potentially, but I think just psychologically what it's doing to me is giving me couldn't get the cast back straight to DVD sequel vibes. Like something like a Cinderella story.
Yeah, and that's the thing. If they don't
cast every movie,
if they don't announce that it's a musical, and that's the reason why we're dramatically changing the type of cast we have, it's like there's no other reason other than you just either didn't have the money or no one thought it was good.
I'm gonna play the Gen Z / cool millennial card and say and do the whole oh my god, AJ, I can't believe you haven't heard of Renee Rapp.
I'm gonna do the true Gen Z thing and be like, did you just call yourself a cool millennial? Because they'll hate that more than they hate that I don't know the names of the actors in Mean Girls.
I don't care what they think of me. But I know you do, so that's why I correct you. Anyway, moving on to February, unless anyone wanted to give a little speech about the Beekeeper.
Who's prepared something?
You prepared something?
No, please don't, Jeremy. Please don't.
So,
February...
The only thing
Oh, God. Okay, Jeremy, sorry. Go for it.
The thing I would say about The Beekeeper is that, and this starts off a commentary about the movies that I saw, the trailers that I saw for the movies coming out this year. There is a real theme of, you can't trust the government, you can't trust media, you can't trust, the people who are there. This kind of
at a time where the government is more trustworthy than ever.
The number of movies that have come out that basically are on the nose about kind of the political environment. It just made me go ugh. Yeah, the Beekeeper.
And the Beekeeper is this? The Beekeeper is a political...
Well, yeah, because it's he's there to protect the hive from the queen of the hive.
Yeah, it's all a metaphor.
Yeah. And so it's the whole idea is that we need these people who sit outside the law and sit outside the normal structures to kind of be vigilantes and do what's right. And I'm like, that's not the answer. That cannot be our answer.
This information on the Beekeeper was available to anyone who had.
It's literally in the trailer. It's text
the film is
in
out.
the trailer. It's not even subtext. It's literally stated out loud.
Yeah. So anyway, February we've got it's one of these things so there's a movie called Argyle coming out, which I've seen the very quick flashes that pop up on TikTok every now and then, but the only commentary I've seen of this are people being I cannot wait for this movie to come out so I can stop seeing that trailer. So apparently I don't really watch trailers, and most of the movies I go to don't play trailers before them, so I haven't seen the Argyle trailer really. But I'm excited for a new Matthew Vaughn film. He's a very fun director, and he got bogged down with doing Kingsman films for the better part of a decade, and so yeah, I'm excited to see him break out of that. It's a very Lost City.
It looks
type thing, isn't it? Where it's like,
yeah.
oh, he's the real, but he's the character in her books, and
very odd.
I have seen the trailer, and I think this looks pretty bad. I think this looks terrible.
Yeah.
And you mentioned like he's been bogged down with Kingsman, but it's also like it's not like he was roped into the Kingsman franchise. Like he spearheaded it, right?
He carved out a niche for himself of what people could expect from the Kingsman, which was basically, here's what you can expect from Matthew Vaughn.
Yeah. And Argyle also, I wouldn't say, looks particularly dissimilar to Kingsman in terms of like subject matter.
Yeah.
But the most interesting discourse I've seen around this, right, is that so Argyle. This is what the promotional material for this movie is telling you, that Argyle is based on a novel called Argyle that is not released yet. Okay, this is what they're saying is true. It's based on an unreleased novel. I
remember talking about this 2 years ago.
The author of the novel is played by Bryce Dallas Howard in the film, and so the movie being like her character comes to life or whatever, it involves this apparent author who has not released the book Argyle yet in real life.
And has no social media presence.
And a lot of people have started speculating it's J.K. Rowling.
Yeah.
And I think it probably is. I think that actually has a lot of legs.
Yeah, it's interesting
another pseudonym for her to write under.
God, Robert Galbraith wasn't good enough for you. Jeez. Interesting that she pretends to be a man to write her books, isn't it?
That is the oldest. That is the oldest joke on the internet right now. That joke has been made.
Wow, I was
so many
very
times.
proud of myself for thinking of that just then. But but yeah, it's interesting. Like, because there was 2 years ago when it was like. Oh, no, yeah, I guess a year ago when it was like, oh, there's this film called Argyle coming out that is maybe based on a book that doesn't exist, but I guess we've got the meta commentary of it now as well. That knowing that it's like, oh, it could just be a viral marketing thing.
I think it is, yeah.
I think I'm really going to struggle with this. If I do watch this movie, I'm really going to struggle with the conceit that like what this author is unknowingly writing is like she's literally writing what's about to happen in like sort of the top spy kind of world. Like, and all the spies are basically just like, you need to tell us what's about to happen because you're the only one who knows. I'm like, what metaphysical fuckery is this? Like, you better have a good reason. You better have a good reason for this, or a good explanation, because otherwise, this movie is just going to die on its ass. The other thing is, the only thing that looks worse than the trailer is Henry Cavill in the trailer. Like, how the hell do you manage to make someone like Henry Cavill look that ugly? I just do not understand. It's actually quite a feat.
Yeah.
Also in February, this is straight to Netflix, I believe. Orion in the Dark, which is like a DreamWorks animated film about this guy who's scared of the dark. This kid who's scared of the dark, and the dark comes to life as this like shadow creature voiced by Paul Walter Hauser, and it's written by Charlie Kaufman.
So this is Charlie Kaufman's kids movie, right? Paul Walter Hauser is a very interesting choice for like celebrity voice in your film, isn't it?
I love Paul Walter Hauser though; he's great.
Can you, for the uneducated here, i.e. me, tell me what he's done?
He was not
I, Tonya.
He wasn't
bookie?
Galooly. He was the other one, the big guy. And
Richard
Jewell
like sort of
was
receding
like
hairline
first,
and like usually plays funny roles.
Yeah. Oh, he was in Cruella.
He's in Cruella. He's one of the cronies in Cruella.
Yeah, he was great. Again, I haven't really seen much about this film, but the conceit of Charlie Kaufman doing a kids film excites me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There's Lisa Frankenstein. This is AJ. You referred to 2024 as a good year for nepotism.
For nepo babies. Yeah. This is directed by Zelda Williams, which like cool. Good on her, you know? Like, it is nepotism. It's absolutely nepotism, but sure, maybe Zelda Williams is like a fun, fresh, creative voice in the industry. I'll take it.
Whose daughter is she?
Robin Williams.
Robin Williams.
She's named after.
Oh,
Legend
right.
of
I was
Zelda.
thinking John, so I was,
But yeah, I was like, oh, that could be quite good. And then it's actually written by Diablo Cody, and that I was like,
Yeah.
It just the trailer looked just like such a mess of ideas. I just genuinely I was like,
is there a trailer out? God.
the
out next
performances
month.
the performances look interesting, but I was just like, what is this actually trying to be? I don't know. But then again, it's Diablo Cody, so that makes sense.
So give me the elevator pitch of what this movie actually is.
Okay.
Who's in it?
Sorry, can you just hit 3 for me?
You want me to hit 3?
Yes, that's the floor I'm going to.
I just tapped 3 on my keyboard. Like, what's this gonna do? Some kind of weird Zoom shortcut?
Oh yeah. So you hear about this movie that's coming out called Lisa
All right, let's
Frankenstein.
move on. You're clearly not
got,
wanting to tell me about
It's got
it.
Catherine Newton in it.
Ah, yes. Yeah, okay, I think I saw flashes of the trailer.
Yeah.
When
It's a horror comedy. It's teenager and a reanimated corpse embark on a murderous journey to find love, happiness, and a few missing body parts.
Yeah, basically Jenna Ortega is young girl Frankenstein, and she
It's
falls
not
in
Jenna
love with
Ortega.
her monster. What's that?
Jenna Ortega's not in it.
What's that?
There's Jenna Ortega in it.
Yes, she's Lisa Frankenstein.
She wasn't in the cast list on Google.
What?
Catherine Newton?
Hold on. Oh, you have to excise all of this.
Anywho, so also one of the most anticipated releases of the year, also coming out in February, I believe on Valentine's Day, Madam Web.
Yeah, I mean, I've been on big tirades about how I'm done with superhero shit, and this is why. This is the bottom of the barrel.
I thought you were going to say
kind of
this.
shit.
This might pull you back.
Well, I will say it looks just dumb enough that maybe it's worth.
That's the
checking
thing.
out.
It's like it's the Rotten Tomatoes thing where like if it's above a certain amount, it's interesting. If it's below a certain amount, it's also very interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, like God, this looks terrible.
This looks like shit, and just everything about it seems like it like I think we talked about this recently, but between this and the Craven movie, it really feels like Sony Spider-Man universe just did not learn a thing from Morbius, and we're just like, all right, that was good, let's make that again, because both these movies look worse than Morbius.
Yeah.
I think. Have you seen the trailer for this, Jeremy? Madam
Yeah, I
Web?
saw it last night. I was just like,
Oh
what?
my god!
Like- Just the whole idea of someone who's getting random like flash forwards and they're like sent into their head, but like they can't control it and they just see stuff. But then they somehow
That's so
manage to
Raven,
like. That was good. But and it's like they go like, oh, I don't know, it doesn't work that way. I can't see very much, and they're sort of like awkward about it. But then they manage to perfectly execute like avoiding what's just about to happen with a whole group of girls who also can't see the future. Like, it's just no.
So you think if it was a group of men, it would be fine?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No. Very believable.
I just reckon that like the lengths that Sony is going to now to make movies that are tangentially related to but do not contain Spider-Man is getting laughable now. It
It's
was
gross.
already laughable in Morbius, but that was only in the post-credit scene. This is a movie which up front is like, we swear it's Spider-Man related, and it's just looks
Have you
like
heard
such a failure.
The news that's come out in the last week that's like they originally decided that like Andrew Garfield's return in No Way Home was such a beloved by audiences, maybe we treated him wrong. He's going to be the Spider-Man for this Sony universe of Marvel characters that we're making. And then after a bit of discussion about that, they were like, fuck, we can probably just make it Tom Holland, like we own him. And then so they were like, okay, cool. And then they were going to set it up in Madam Web. And then after shooting it, they were like, "Fuck, the movie's set in 2003. This doesn't work." And then they reshot and removed all like references to Spider-Man.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
What's the point of setting it in 2003 though?
Well, so there's a rumor that I was going to say Ben Wyatt. Adam Scott is in the film, who's rumored to be playing Uncle Ben and Uncle Ben Wyatt. And there's a shot of him holding a fortune cookie, and everyone's just like, "God, the fortune cookie's going to say, with great power comes great responsibility," isn't it? That's going to be where he got it from. But then also, I saw that, I don't know if it was true, but it was like, they've rewritten with great power. It's like, when you receive responsibility, it also comes with great power, or something like that.
Yeah, like, it is, character with known depth, Uncle Ben is being supplanted into this movie.
Yeah.
This character who was never just supposed to be a plot device, they're like, yeah, we can expand on him. And it's just, oh my god. I really like Dakota Johnson, but she needs to be in better movies, I think.
Yeah, that JOI trailer they released.
Yeah, it's so weird.
You know how, AJ, when we were talking about, I think it was a couple of years back, about sort of the IP, like Space Jam, right? The Space Jam remake, and like
the
sort
IP
of
flex movie.
Yeah, the IP flex movie of just like, look how much we have. Like, we're going to cram all of this in just to sort of like, and how gross it is for like companies to basically get rid of good filmmaking and good storytelling in favor of just being like, you recognize these things.
Yeah.
It's like, this is the most desperate version of that. Like, where it's just like, it's not even like impressive. It's just like, I used to be part of this, and I can still be sort of part of this if you just look on this way and this way only.
Yeah, that's so true, because Madam Web, this is the first and I'm sure you guys and I'm sure most audiences will have heard of Madam Web.
AJ.
Oh, you knew?
I knew Madam Web was.
Well, still, it's just funny that it's like, now they're not, like with Venom, everyone knows Venom. They've got the name, the branding there to push them the whole way. But with this, it's like, oh god, we need to let the general public know that there's a character that is kind of like Spider-Man. She can also see the future, which I know is not a Spider-Man power. It's a separate thing, but we promise there are spider-related things in it as well. It's like, she doesn't need to be Spider-Man related, It could just be someone who sees the future.
Like, that's so right. We worked on That's So Raven. She wasn't related to Spider-Man at all.
Exactly.
So there's also, to close off February, we've got Drive Away Dolls, which is the solo directorial debut of Ethan Coen.
Isn't it interesting that someone who has got such standing in the industry, someone who is like more than proven his worth over the years, is making his directorial debut solo for a movie that I don't think anyone's gonna see.
Wow, hot take.
Yeah, no one's gonna see this.
Really?
I don't think so.
Why?
I just think it hasn't had the promotional push that a regular Coen Brothers movie would have had.
I think it was supposed to come out, but it was delayed. Yeah, it was supposed to come out in September. It was delayed due to the strike. But yeah, it's interesting that it's like, so this is sort of seems like a bit more of the like, it's this girl getting over a breakup with another girl, and goes on this like cross-country road trip, ends up embroiled in the world of criminals and stuff. But it's like, it's got Margaret Qualley in it, who I really like. But it's because Joel Coen did his solo directorial debut with the Tragedy of Macbeth, which was very much like, it's like he took their like Oscar really hard-hitting side, and then Ethan's taking their like fun criminal underworld side.
Let's go on a road trip with some fun criminals.
It's really interesting, isn't it?
It's
It's like showing very clearly who brings what to the table, and I'm not surprised it's Joel bringing that and Ethan bringing this.
Yeah, well, you don't get married to Frances McDormand without being pretty serious, I'd imagine.
Very severe.
Yeah. But I'm interested to see it. I haven't seen any trailers or anything like that, but the idea sounds cool, and yeah. So March, a big release that was delayed, one that I know you two are very excited for, Dune Part 2. And I'm going to ask you, AJ, sell me this Dune.
It's not my job to educate you, Richard. I don't know. I don't know anything about it.
Well,
I've seen-
I was doing a sell me this pen thing, but like sell me on Dune as a concept, because I'm still not bought into Dune.
Well, see, I could sell you on Dune if they had been smarter with their production schedule, because I think if Dune 2 had come out 6 months after Dune 1, which is what I think they should have planned for, I think that we would be in the grips of like a big blockbuster franchise phenomenon right now. I think people will be a lot more excited to continue watching this franchise if we were actually like looking at the approaching release of a third Dune movie.
Messiah.
Dune Messiah. So I think like I would say like theoretically the art should speak for itself. So theoretically this movie should still be good enough that it justifies or makes a good case to get into Dune in a big way. But I do wonder if the content YouTube-esque model these days of like when you release something matters. I wonder if that's going to impact, because I'll say it, I'm floating across the Dune fan line here. I've realized recently that I don't really revisit the first one that often in my mind. I don't think about it. I haven't watched it since I saw it in cinemas. I'll rewatch it for this, I think. But like, yeah, I just wonder if it, this is doing the opposite of what you asked me to do, but I just wonder if
You're
it
right,
needed
AJ. Dune is bad.
I just wonder if it needed to strike while the iron is hot, and it feels like, and because it was
Interesting
already
choice of words there, because the strike.
Very good. Well, because that pushed it back another 6 months or so, right? So, like, it was already too long when it was supposed to come out. Like, it had already been too long, and now it's been even longer. I think it's crazy that Dune came out in 2020? 2021? Late 2021?
2021, yeah. So it was meant to be a 2-year gap. Yes,
Oh.
you're right. It should have been year on year. Like 100% should have just been. I mean, if not, I love the idea of 6 months, but you're never going to get a December release followed up by a June release. Like they're going to do it December.
I mean, there's precedent for
it.
it.
We got Star Wars, we got last year, then Solo, and that like that. But the
Matrix 2 and 3 as well.
But I think the main thing was
all great examples of excellent films that we all loved.
Pirates of the Caribbean 2 and 3, like these, it all worked.
The
for
main
these
thing
franchises.
that we're you diving into there is just the fact that Dune wasn't a quote unquote sure thing like Star Wars, The Matrix, and like Avengers Endgame.
Lord of the Rings.
Sort of Lord of the Rings, yeah. But like
the thing, the studio didn't think that Lord of the Rings was going to be a sure thing.
Well, but they let them
still
make
did it,
them
though.
all together, yeah. And so Dune, they were like, we got to see how the first one does before we sign off on a second one, and
which I think is crazy, because all I have to do to sell you the movie, and if you'd asked me this, Richard, we would have saved a lot of time on AJ waffling around his own thoughts.
God, we'd be talking about Ghostbusters Frozen Empire by now.
I love just your quick glance to the thing to be like, we'll be talking about.
All I have to say to sell you on this is 2 words: Denis Villeneuve.
Yeah,
like come on,
no, you've won me.
That's
over,
all
Jeremy.
I have to do to sell you on this film. Like he is the most exciting director making big budget films right now, and I include Christopher Nolan in that. Like I would far rather watch any of Denis Villeneuve's movies than Christopher Nolan's, and I love Christopher Nolan's films, but like he has an unmatched track record of film.
I think if we're looking to play the devil's advocate, that like if you're a studio, I can see that like Dune, this like famously like unfilmable novel, it's already bombed once before, and then just coming off the back of Blade Runner 2049, which I'm sure in studio circles seemed like a sure thing, because like everyone loves Blade Runner, and then
Ryan Gosling.
it underperformed at the box office. That to now be like, I'm going to take on this massive sci-fi epic that everyone thinks is a bad idea. I can see why they needed the proof of the first one to make the second one.
Yeah, and the thing is, AJ, I'd also say to your point about not really coming back to the first one very often. Like I come back to the first one quite a lot in terms of the feel of it, like the sort of that the world that he created. I love it. I just love the visuals. I love the the whole sense. But there's not much story, right? I mean, this was Richard's main criticism of the first one, and it really is just like a precursor to all the events that are about to unfold, and so it's not like the story really grabbed you and did something for you, because it really only told like a quarter of a story, which may be why
you're down from half a story. Oh my god!
Oh no, really? Like, I mean, in terms of what's left to do, this movie has a lot. It's a lot to do. So I'm not surprised necessarily that narratively this film doesn't get you coming back to it. But for me, like, every time the YouTube algorithm must just know me quite well, because it every now and then will just pop up like a behind the scenes featurette or something about
in between your like Joe Rogan podcasts and your Jordan Peterson.
No, Andrew Tate, please.
Live from the prison cell.
Oh my god, no, my YouTube algorithm is a lot of chateau restoration videos and videos on the engineering of dams and river systems.
This is bad podcasting because the moment's totally gone. But what are these podcasts if we don't try roast each other? So I do just want to say,
Richard, I can sell you Dune Part 2 in 2 words, and I can't pronounce either of them correctly.
No, certainly not. But hey, look at me trying anyway.
Very good. The moment had passed though, AJ. But so next up we've got
AJ. The moment had passed, and I'll thank you never to do that again. You can get the fuck off my Zoom call.
So another Netflix film. This is one I was quite excited for until the trailer came out the other day. So it was Spaceman, directed by Johan Reck, who did the Chernobyl series, and this was like. It's set at the far reaches of the universe. It stars Carey Mulligan, Paul Dano, and Adam Sandler. And it's like, damn, the Sandman's, doing his serious thing at Netflix now. And then the trailer comes out and turns out Paul Dano is playing a giant spider. And I was like, okay, never mind. I probably won't watch this.
I started watching the trailer and I was like,
this
is something... Yeah, it's too scary. No, it's like, this is something that I... am not interested in, dressed in the clothes of something I am interested in.
So it's the other way around for me. Because once you put on a big spider suit, I'm like, I'm not interested in this anymore.
I saw part of the trailer and literally I've erased it from my mind. Can anyone say what the movie's actually meant to be about?
It's about Adam Sandler as like a lost astronaut in a ship and lost in space and thinks he's, done for, and then a talking spider shows up, I think. That's the story.
Well, AJ, at the very least, you won't have to put up with recognizing the face of Paul Dano. you can believe that the spider's a real talking spider.
So Kung Fu Panda 4, this is interesting. This is one of those movies that just like, it felt like it was never happening. Like, for the last, decade, they've been like, no, there's a Kung Fu Panda 4 coming. And then even when it was like, no, it's coming out in March. And then I was like, no, it's fucking not. And then a trailer leaked. And I was still like, okay, yeah, proof of concept or something like that. And then it's like, no, the trailer's out. It's coming out in March. It brings back all the villains. So you've got was J.K. Simmons, Ian McShane, and Gary Oldman all coming back.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, my investment in Kung Fu Panda is fairly low, despite it being probably one of the more consistent franchises.
It's our example for a Gold Star franchise.
Yeah, it's funny that I don't really care about it that much because it's like on paper this should be like great, but I think it's like even though they're consistent, for me personally, they still don't like break a ceiling of how good they all are. It's like, they're all like 3.5s.
It's like for what they are, they're really good, but what they are is just not that interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I feel like any story that Kung Fu Panda could tell should definitely have already been told. And I think looking at the trailer has already been told.
Yeah. Well, that's the point. It's very much playing on nostalgia, but it's like, it's got a villain that's bringing back all the old villains from the dead.
I think our problem is that we were not of an age where Kung Fu Panda is a nostalgic property for us. So, totally. And isn't this an interesting thing to see? I'm used to seeing nostalgic baiting movies targeted at me, and now I'm old enough that they're targeting people below me now.
The youths.
We don't need to dwell on this, please, Jeremy, but Irish Wish is a Lindsay Lohan Netflix rom-com coming, and then I think we've just had another one announced, but she signed a deal with Netflix to do a bunch of stuff with them.
Is this presumably a St. Patrick's movie?
Yeah, it could be, actually.
Is this is Netflix, because we didn't get a lot of Netflixmas last year, so have they put the budget into representing some of the other holidays?
Sounds like a great idea.
Irish Wish starring Lindsay Lohan. Let's make some guesses. I think she falls in love with a leprechaun. That's got to be it, right?
That's her
or
wish.
a leprechaun grants her a wish, and that wish is to be with a handsome man, but the leprechaun has got some tricks up his sleeve.
A man who's just a hand?
He ends up putting her together, like he ends up tricking her into falling in love with like his deadbeat like younger brother who's like an Irish guy who just can't get any girls.
Yeah.
And she's cursed to spend the rest of eternity with this guy and it's like a sort of a shallow Hal situation where like she sees that he's actually, and everyone else is like, why are you with this asshole?
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's going to be like
That's
Shallow
great.
Hal.
Print.
So, one that the poster just came out this morning, but Roadhouse. Jake Gyllenhaal in the remake of Roadhouse.
You guys seen Roadhouse?
No, I've seen Family Guy, and Peter loves that movie.
I saw Roadhouse as a movie that I definitely shouldn't have been watching because it was far too violent for me at the age I watched it.
Oh,
so
Jeremy, what are you doing, mate?
I know.
You got to take care of yourself.
Curse my mind forever. But I mean, who's this for? Like, I mean,
it's just for Jake Gyllenhaal.
Okay. Yeah, for his
he
career.
said, I want to be
But
Roadhouse. No, okay.
Yeah, whatever.
Sweet. Here's one that we probably actually want to talk about is Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, the follow-up to Ghostbusters Afterlife. We've got a trailer for this. I think this is another one that was delayed because of the strike.
Is it just me? Is it just me, or does this trailer start with exactly the same scene that Geostorm accomplished with like the freeze coming across like a beach and into a city? Like it's literally shot for shot the exact scene from Geostorm. And I thought, I was like, is there a remake of Geostorm already? Like was literally my thought.
Giving it another go.
and then I saw the Ghostbusters car and I was like, what the fuck?
No, I think that's been the prevailing kind of like prediction for this. Is it's like a very strange tone for a Ghostbusters movie. Like people are saying like, you know, the original Ghostbusters is a slacker comedy, and this looks like an epic battle for life and death kind of like.
Apparently, they took a lot of inspiration from the real Ghostbusters animated series and. They wanted to like make a feature-length episode of that.
Right. Well, that's interesting. One thing that I don't like about this, friends, is its title. I think that historically, you go back through any Ghostbusters release, whether it's a movie or a TV show or a video game, up until Afterlife, they were very resistant to add anything beyond a number. Or and then they changed the female reboot to Ghostbusters Answer the Call, which is like one of those titles that just doesn't really like mean anything specific to that movie. And then there was Ghostbusters Afterlife, which I was like, all right, interesting. They're finally dabbling in subtitles. I think Afterlife also doesn't really mean anything.
Well, it makes
specific
sense
to
because
that
it's
movie.
like it's where ghosts are.
And a Twilight Years Ghostbusters film.
Yeah.
So, but Frozen Empire feels like it is now picking buzzwords out of another franchise's toy box.
100%. Empire is not a word that should ever be associated with anything in the like Ghostbusters universe.
This is a Jurassic World subtitle.
Yeah.
Or a Planet of the Apes.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah, but it's interesting because it's like it's almost like the last film was very much like a passing the torch, like you said, to Twilight years Ghostbusters film. And then now it's like, well, now the new team's taken on the Frozen Empire.
Yep, and all the decrepit actors who are still alive from the originals are back, and it's so
and even
funny.
some that aren't alive.
It's so funny how, like, I don't know if you guys like know too much about this, but like Ghostbusters 3 had been in development. After Ghostbusters 2 came out, there were conversations for Ghostbusters 3, and the main reason it never got made was because the actors were too, difficult to agree to make it, and then the director died, and then one of the main actors died, and all of this happened, and then they all returned for cameos in Arts at the Call, and it was like, you were willing to do this whole time? And then, again, them returning at the end of Afterlife was like, you could have done this when everyone was alive and well, and there was like steam in the franchise. I actually didn't mind Ghostbusters Afterlife, but I think that Frozen Empire looks, I don't know, I'm not very interested in it.
Have you guys seen the trailer for the American Society of Magical Negroes?
I have not.
So it's
No, I felt awkward watching anything with that title.
So it's funny, like it's so Justice Smith, who was Detective Pikachu, was in Fallen Kingdom. He gets recruited to the American Society of Magical Negroes, and it's playing off the magical Negro trope, where it's like it's this secret underground society of black people who exist to make white people's lives better.
Amazing.
That's really good.
Yeah, and so, but then it was like there was this teaser trailer which was just like welcome to, and then the title reveal, and people were like, "Holy shit!" But one thing that it was like everyone's like, "Oh my god, imagine going up and asking for 2 tickets to this," and then it's like, which as a complaint I see a lot, but it's like, when was the last time you asked for 2 tickets to something?
Ooh. Yeah, I buy all my tickets online.
Yeah, like it has not been a problem for me to say the name of a film for probably over a decade.
I think everyone's just looking forward to now that the AI overlords are coming, that we're actually going to have to start talking to the AI, and we really don't want like the hive mind of the internet to hear us saying that in case it's like recorded forever. And
we do have the AI companion turned on the Zoom call.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Well, we're screwed.
But when the full trailer came out, a lot of people were sort of disappointed with what the actual plot is, and that it's like he is assigned to this, white guy who falls in love with this girl, but Justice Smith actually falls in love with her, but it's like it's his job. He can't intervene, and his only job is to help the white guy get with her, and he can't do it. So falling in love wasn't part of the plan,
right?
But it's like, when I say that plot, it sounds kind of interesting, but the trailer it's a very, if you see the original teaser trailer, and then it's like, oh, it's this rom-com with a high concept, I think people were a little bit disappointed, but I'm still
it's almost
excited
like a
for
waste of a really good concept on just sort of a stock standard will he won't he
well, it's also a very like surreal and silly concept with such kind of like a not a plot I haven't seen before.
Yeah,
maybe that's
you
it.
falling
Maybe
in love with a friend and you can't have her and shit.
And it also seems like a concept that has a lot of bite to it. Like actually can really do something really interesting across a wide range of different relationships within the film. And then to be like, oh, well, we're just going to be focusing on this one. Yeah.
It might be, I'm still interested to see it, but yeah. But I won't be asking for 2 tickets to it. Ooh. But
I'll ask for 4.
I'll ask for 3
I'll
because I'll
taking
take
my
guys.
friends.
Yeah. So, and then to close off March, we've got Godzilla X Kong, The New Empire. And this is like
a second Empire film, subtitled film of the same month.
Yeah.
And also a franchise which it can maybe use Empire more than Ghostbusters can, but like it's still such a like we have like lost the thread of whatever our titling scheme was for the series. You know?
But so Godzilla and Kong are teaming up now. It's like, it's funny having just seen Godzilla -1 and like how incredible that was, and like the gravitas to it. And then this is like that shot of the two of them running together. It just looks so silly, but it's like it looks fun.
How much do you think? What I would have loved to have been in the room when like the marketing and the executive producers for Godzilla X Kong like saw the reception that Godzilla Minus One was getting, like how just they would have just been like, fuck, like
No,
just,
they would have been like, oh, sick, people love Godzilla, drop the trailer.
Yeah, totally.
No, because they would have just seen the difference, right? And seen the difference of how people were responding to this particular type of film, including Godzilla.
I think Americans in general, but like American movie companies see in dollar signs and not in reputation
signs.
necessarily. And
well,
so
that's
I
the
think,
problem, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that they're probably feeling pretty confident that this movie will make money.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like, it seems to me watching the trailer, this has a huge amount of Journey to the Center of the Earth in it.
Yeah.
So did the last one.
It was all about like the Hollow Earth.
Oh, that's
theory
true.
and stuff,
That's true. Yeah. I'm so bored. And like the sort of the hideous moment in the trailer where they're like, oh, it's a baby Kong. And I'm like, oh, Lord save us. Like, just lowest common denominator tripe.
Yeah, I mean, I've never, like, every single one of these movies in this series has, like, every one of them has at best fallen short of my expectations for it. And I don't anticipate this one will supersede those expectations. So.
Yeah. So April, we've got The First Omen, an Omen prequel.
No kidding,
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah. Also, so we're finally getting a release of The People's Joker. Do you remember hearing about this film?
This might be one of my most anticipated movies of the year, and I know so little about it, and it looks like it doesn't exist. It looks like it's not real.
Yeah. So it's like a coming of age parody superhero movie. It's like a trans Joker, and but also Bob Odenkirk's in it.
Well, AJ's not allowed to see it because he's not watching superhero movies anymore.
Yeah.
Oh no! I mean,
AJ.
If I was going to put my cynical hat on, I would say that, like, we are so far through the superhero boom now that, like, guess what? Now we're satirizing it is also like a tired trope now.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
so
this isn't
maybe I
we
won't
said
be
this. This
interested in it.
feels more like this is less like Brightburn or something like that, where it's like what? It's just like this is a group of people who came together and made something silly.
It's very low budget. Is that correct? Am I correct? Is that
it's like
it's
more or less a fan film.
Yeah, it has the aesthetic of a fan film, but it got an unimaginable amount of buzz
because it got the season desist.
Yeah.
Played at like one film festival and then was pulled and all this stuff. So another this year's Guy Ritchie film, which feels like it doesn't exist, is called The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. It also stars Henry Cavill.
Of course it's called that, right?
Yeah.
Of course
my
the Guy Ritchie movie I'm not going to see is called The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare.
Yeah.
It just sounds like Mad Libs. It literally sounds like a Mad Libs prompt.
Yeah.
It sounds like a Simpsons joke. It's like the like fabulous contraption of Dr.
Prefers
Horatio.
Horatio Huffnagel.
Yeah, like it's like that, but for Guy Ritchie tropes.
Yeah.
For League of
Whimsical
Extraordinary,
tropes.
basically for League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. It's like sort of it's the Rob Schneider straight to DVD copy of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
So we also have, I didn't mark it as one of my most anticipated of last year, but we have part 2 of Rebel Moon, The Scar Giver, which is Zack Snyder's films. Apparently the first one was terrible. But the R-rated film that's coming out at some point this year is like apparently a completely different film and much better. It's like, okay, if that gets good reviews, I might watch that. But I saw a lot of people being like, this is just a Bug's Life. But it's like, we've known for years that it's a Seven Samurai Star Wars film.
I think that whenever a Zack Snyder movie comes out, it's gone from annoying me how much attention this like perfectly unremarkable director gets to like, well, now this is part of the game. And I think it increases people's savageness of it a bit. Like the reviews for Rebel Moon Part 1, I saw one that was like, I don't think Zack Snyder understands what art is. Like that's the degree with how terrible this movie is like everything in this movie is so hateful and like empty and it makes it feel like he doesn't understand what filmmaking is.
Nice. So
I watched the trailer and I was just so flummoxed as to what was going on. Like, it was almost like the trailer was cut. And I'm really hoping that my sister-in-law didn't cut it, but I'm pretty sure she didn't. That it's almost like the trailer was cut with the direction of, please don't give anyone any idea of what's actually going on in this film. Like,
It's
just
Star
show
Wars.
them.
Just think it's Star Wars. Just go see
Show
it 'cause
them-
it's Star Wars.
Show them images of people arriving and leaving, and like having snatches of conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, doing a two-parter. Come on, man. See, this is the opposite of Dune. See how the first one does, because doesn't Rebel Moon Part 2 just feel like it is promising to be not worth watching?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Someone's finally doing the release schedule you wanted, AJ, and you're poo-pooing it. Although we do actually have one coming up later on as well. But it's interesting.
We could cover this for Film Franchise Fortnights this year, since we're doing duologies.
We should do. So we should do like to make it a two-part, a multi-week one, and we do the original cuts one week and the R-rated version the following week.
Fun.
But so when I made this list a week ago, it was just called Untitled Universal Monsters Film, directed by Radio Silence, who did Ready or Not and Scream 5 and 6. But there's now a trailer out. It's called Abigail, and it's like, it's interesting because it's like, oh yeah, it's all Universal monsters. But here's the premise: the film focuses on a group of kidnappers who capture and must watch over the daughter of the most powerful underworld figure for the $50 million ransom until they get more than they bargained for, when Abigail reveals her true nature as a vampire child, hunting them down by one by one. So I think it's based on Dracula's daughter or something like that. But it's got Melissa Barrera, who was let go from Scream 7, Catherine Newton's in it, Angus Cloud, it's his final film role, Dan Stevens, Giancarlo Esposito, Kevin Durant is in it.
I thought this movie was Lisa Frankenstein, I think, because they've both got Catherine Newton.
Yeah, and they're both Universal monsters.
Yeah, exactly, right? They're both like funny horrors kind of thing. I don't know, feeling kind of conflicted about this. I think that the
Radio Silence haven't missed yet, so I'm happy.
Yeah, but after Melissa Barrera was let go of Scream 7 for being anti-genocide,
you can't support her anymore.
No, I can support her. It's the director, one of the directors in Radio Silence. Just released a real. I'm not ruling him out, but I'm just like, it's kind of like shitty. Please don't blame me kind of situation, instead of like, I mean, they eventually left the project themselves, which I think was the.
They were never attached to the project. Yeah, you're thinking
even
of
more delicious.
Yeah, you're thinking of Christopher. What's his last name? They did.
Class.
Yeah. He was directing it. No, it was. What's his name? That did Happy Death Day.
Oh, was he directing Scream 7?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Christopher Landon.
Well,
yeah, he was directing Scream 7, so Radio Silence weren't attached to 7.
I see. All right, never mind. Everyone's fine.
So, the new Alex Garland film, Civil War, is coming out in April.
God. Holy shit, man. Alex Garland, where you used to be the king, man. Like, this is so fun. Have you seen the trailer for Civil War, Jeremy?
It was the first trailer that I clicked on one of those like 2024 trailer roundups, and this was the very first one that came on. And I was like, what the hell is he doing? Like,
my favorite tweet about it was from the YouTube channel Just Right, who wrote, "This looks like God's Not Dead for liberals," which is exactly what it looks like. Like, this is so good. For those unfamiliar, Alex Garland wrote 28 Days Later, directed by Danny Boyle, which is, a very important movie to me. He wrote a few other, pretty good
Annihilation.
Sort of. And then went on to directed Annihilation, which I think is excellent. Ex Machina, which I think is excellent. And then 2 years ago, he made the movie Men, which got very interesting reviews because it was one of those, an A24 unsettling horror, which looks like a slam dunk, another win for Garland. And then it came out and people were like, this is pretty like blatant and obtuse. And I watched it and it's so funny because what I think we are seeing is a phenomenon where I think like a lot of men who are past a certain age, like I would assume Alex Garland's in his 50s at least, I think they have recently become feminists. This is such an indicting thing to predict about something. I reckon 20 years ago, Alex Garland probably didn't think about feminism, and then at some point in his life, it was introduced to him.
And he was like, I can make money off this.
Yeah, but like Men is a movie that is about how bad men treat women, which is not an invalid thing to make a movie about. It just feels very like baby's first feminist story in the package of something which feels like it should be much smarter.
It's basically him going, hey, guys, I think we might be the problem.
Yeah. And it was just very on the nose. I really liked parts of it, but overall it was just a very like simple plot and a very complicated execution.
Well, there was like one of the greatest Letterboxd reviews of all time you quoted. Nice, man. I hope she sees this.
Yeah, nice, Alex. I hope she sees this. And so Civil War looks like a continuation of kind of this like misplaced political. Yeah, like I think it's good that we can now look at left-wing movies and be like, this looks bad. Like, you know, like it just looks so sloppily put together and so not nuanced, and it's so weird to see that coming from someone who has written and directed such smart things. Yeah.
It's progressive fan fiction, right? Like,
Totally.
or at least, the thing is, it's not even necessarily progressive fan fiction, because there would be whole right-wing, like extreme right-wing people who would be like, this is what's gonna happen, you know, like if they keep ignoring us, kind of thing. But
This is the future liberals want.
The most ludicrous thing about this whole thing is that there are two American states who band together to become the Western forces, and those two states are, and I kid you not, California and Texas, like the most politically diametrically opposed states you could possibly get in the entire of America.
I'm gonna step in here again and say that I kind of like that. So Texas, aside from like a few parts, is actually swinging to the left, like if you look at how they vote. But it's one of these things that because of the electoral college, yada yada yada. But Texas is more left wing these days than its reputation. But I also kind of like that the idea that I mean, and having not seen the film, you know, but like I like the idea that there's kind of seemingly more thought gone into it about like what are the issues that cause the Civil War, and it's not just like, well, all the fucking redneck hicks below this line will be the bad guys, and all the liberals will be the good guys.
That's true.
And so it's like it's kind of cool that there actually seems to be a bit more thought gone into it, that other than just like, well, on the last electoral map, these ones were colored this color, and so they're the bad guys.
The issue I have with that, though, is that like you're using the United States. You're saying we're going to have a civil war like in the future, but then you're basically telling your viewers through like the characters that you select and kind of like the position they hold, like which side to root for. And it's just like, and I just think that in the reality of the culture wars in America at the moment, people are going to immediately want to go like, well, am I going to root for the Western forces, or am I going to root for like the people who currently hold Washington, D.C.? Like, I mean, there's going to be, I think, I mean, having just seen the trailer, they don't really explain what was the inciting incident of kind of the division. They're going to have to do a pretty damn good job of that to kind of make one side look like the baddies, because I think otherwise Americans will just go like, well, whoever's holding the White House at the moment probably isn't the good guy, so I'm going to root for the Western forces. Like,
yeah. Did this trailer dropped like maybe a couple months after A24 announced they wanted to make more crowd-pleasing blockbusters, and everyone was like, oh no, that's kind of why we like you, is that you don't do that. And this trailer came out and it felt like it. Like, answer to an evil prayer. You know? like this is exactly what people
an evil
are worried
prayer
about.
is so great. The other thing I noticed about the trailer is that essentially it kind of posits the heroes of the piece as the reporters and journalists. Like you're basically the protagonists of this film are like Kirsten Dunst and is it Mandy Patinkin? No, it's not Mandy Patinkin. Who's the older? Anyway, there's an older journalist guy who's her producer, it seems, and like they're running around trying to like get the real story out there, and I'm just like, ugh, hard environment to try and like get your one hero to be a journalist, like.
Yeah. I don't have, I don't know which character specifically you're talking about, but we've got Kirsten Dunst, Wagner Mora, Stephen McKinley Henderson, Kaylee Spaney, who just played Priscilla, Jesse Plemons, Nick Offerman as the President of the United States.
That was so bizarre.
Feels like a very much like a comedy beat to cast him as the President of the United States in a movie which looks way too serious for its own good. So, yeah.
Anyway, it looks like trash. Can't wait to watch it.
So closing out April, we've got Challenges, which is another one that was moved because of the strike. So this is the sexy Zendaya tennis threesome movie directed by Luca Guadagnino. But it's very funny. So the writer of this film, which is about like a love triangle of two guys and they end up having threesomes because they both love the girl, is...
Jeremy, this is going to blow your mind who the writer of this movie is.
So the writer of this film is the husband of the writer of Past Lives, which is about a love a semi-autobiographical love triangle story.
Hold on, sorry, that's not what I thought you were going to... I didn't know he was married to the writer of Past Lives.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah, he's like done a YouTube video with a silly face or some shit.
Yeah, this is the potion seller guy wrote this movie. You remember Potion Seller? I need your strongest potion.
No, I've never seen
I've
it.
only known it from like, did you know it's this guy? And I'm like, I don't know who that is.
Okay,
but...
so Potion Seller is not his best video, but if you go to his YouTube channel, he basically like somehow managed to be like climb the very low bar and be the best. You know how like MacBooks in like 2012 had a bunch of silly filters that you could use? He like used that to develop characters that look weird.
The original Tom Sainsbury.
Yeah, sure. His stuff, I think, is so fucking funny, and you should definitely watch it. Like, it sounds so juvenile, but the like
sounds like
the
something we don't need to dwell on.
The characterization is so funny, and so that's more why I'm excited.
Although I'm proud, Jeremy, that like when AJ said this is going to blow your mind, and it wasn't what AJ was thinking, that your mind was still blown. But we, so the Fall Guy. Now this is another faceless.
Are we just not going to talk about the challenges, like the substance of the film at all?
Oh,
Justin Kurtitz is the guy's name.
Did you want to? You had ample opportunity to jump in there, Jeremy, and you.
Well, I feel like I didn't. AJ just sucked up all the air out of the room with a stupid anecdote.
Yeah, well, and I wanted to move on.
Fine.
Challenges is one that
I like Josh O'Connor.
I was
That's
annoyed when I saw the trailer because I was like, this feels like the entire film. It's,
100%.
Totally.
Yeah.
Although we don't know how she's going to wreak her revenge. Is she going to make a comeback into tennis herself?
What?
So,
don't be stupid.
The Fall Guy
That's out of the question.
It's based on a TV series from the 80s, but it's directed by David Leitch, who did the
Train movie.
Yeah. Who did the first John Wick with Chad Stahelski, and then did Deadpool 2, Bullet Train, etc. But it's just a big blockbuster. Ryan Gosling, Emily Blunt, Aaron Taylor Johnson. Yeah. It's like it's about an old stuntman, and then he comes back. Anyway.
Yes.
So we're getting an Amy Winehouse biopic. The trailer just came out for this. Interesting. Amy Winehouse is someone who I've only sort of just recently been able to like accept that I like. Just like at the height of her popularity, I was always like, I didn't like it. Like it was one of those things where I didn't like the song Rehab, and then so I was just like, wow. Anyway, moving on. And then also, I fucking loved Valerie by the Zootons, and then she covered it, and everyone's like, well, have you heard this new song? And I already knew it.
Just letting Richard talk about this unbroken for like 10 minutes.
It's literally the definition of giving someone enough rope to hang themselves.
I didn't watch the trailer, but all the tweets were like, "Oh, great, another Bohemian Rhapsody!" I saw people making the like, "Walk Hard should have ended this type of movie" kind of comments. So, and also I've heard something like her estate or like her loved ones aren't particularly happy with it as well, or something like that.
I can't
Maybe
imagine
I'm making shit up.
you'd tell a story of Amy Winehouse's life that her family would be happy about.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
I see.
I feel like she probably
I
had a
feel-
life that her family weren't super stoked about.
Yeah, for me,
I
I just hope
Do
that
not
there's a
know
lot
enough
of
about
editing.
Amy Winehouse.
Yeah,
I just hope that there's a lot of
wins the
editing in
award
this
for most
film,
editing.
and that will be recognised for all of the editing that is in the film.
I was on the Letterboxd podcast a month ago,
Oh, here
and
it goes.
we briefly mentioned this. We briefly talked about Bohemian Rhapsody winning Best Editor, and my colleague Brian pointed out that one of the reasons it's thought that Bohemian Rhapsody took away Best Editing is because it didn't have a director, so the editor was the one that told the story, which I think is an interesting perspective and is maybe worthy of an Oscar if it was a well-edited film, I think.
So next up, from the twisted mind of John Krasinski, we have If, the film about the Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends movie. So
This looks. I'm so uninterested in this. For what is an original blockbuster, it's like, but it's a Ryan Reynolds movie, and it's like,
that's his brand, yeah.
yeah, it just looks like a Ryan Reynolds movie that they're trying to pretend is something more. It's about imaginary friends. Does Ryan Reynolds play an imaginary friend or something?
No, he's like
that
rounding
the
them up and shit.
Right, and it's just like, I feel like there are so many imaginary friend movies that you don't
Name one.
like. I've seen what's the real bad one? Drop Dead Fred.
Paper Man.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I feel like we've
Which
done
has Ryan
this.
Reynolds in it.
We've seen this concept, done to death, and it's being treated like this like radical new idea, and it's a Ryan Reynolds movie, so it's got two strikes against it.
This is the film version of when a celebrity releases a children's book that's really terrible, but it still gets on the bestseller list because they're a celebrity, and people go like, "I'll buy that book for my kids," even though it's absolute. It's like when Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, released her children's book, The Bench, and it became a New York Times bestseller, even though it was absolutely maudlin and pap to the extreme. And it's just like, just because this is John Krasinski, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he wrote a children's book and then developed a script off of this, just because it's like, I've become a dad now and I have some thoughts and I'm famous, so I can make it happen. The weird thing for me about this was that I saw the trailer for Imaginary before I saw this trailer, and man, do those two have different vibes.
What's Imaginary? Is that on our list?
It's not.
It's not? Oh, well.
Could be
Just
anywhere.
A short word on Imaginary. It's another Blumhouse one that's coming out, and it's basically, imaginary friends that want to kill you kind of thing, and a little girl discovering something and creeping out older people. I mean, it's all been done to death.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it's
I'm
Jeff
looking at it
Wadlow
now.
who did Truth or Dare and Fantasy Island, so presumably it's more of that. He also did Kick-Ass too. The Strangers, we're getting like another prequel too, but that's like almost like an anthology series. So it's called The Strangers Chapter 1, so I don't really see you.
Oh, as in the Liv Tyler horror movie.
Yeah, they did The Strangers Pray at Night as well.
Oh my god, it's so, like, isn't the first one like 20 years old? Like, what kind of
Came in
cult
2008,
following?
yeah.
What kind of cult following does fucking The Strangers have?
This one,
like, I feel like it
it's-
made no impact.
So there was The Strangers in 2008, then 2018 there was The Strangers Pray at Night, and now they're doing a Strangers Chapter 1 with Chapter 2 and 3 to follow, directed by Rennie Harlan, interestingly.
I just think, like, do you see what I'm saying, though? It's
Yeah,
like, this is not a movie that, like, warranted a 10 years later sequel, let alone a prequel coming out 5 or
16
6 years
later,
later. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Weird.
we've got a big day at the end of May with 3 films coming out on the same day. We've got Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, the Garfield movie, and Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
And
Let's
I think
each pick
you
one
have
to
said
talk
them.
about.
You've said them in the order of how good they will be.
Yeah, who wants what to talk about?
I am more excited for Furiosa, but could probably talk about Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes for longer.
All right, I'll take Garfield. Jeremy, you get Furiosa.
Great. Well, as maybe the world's #1 fan of Mad Max Fury Road, having seen it seven times at the cinema.
Wow.
I kept running into people who hadn't seen it, and I was like, "You need to watch this. You absolutely have to watch it." So I'm like, I don't know. I'm not really a action movie fan. I'm like, no, come with me. So I just took people to the movie and went and saw it 7 times.
Nice. What did you think of the trailer for Furiosa?
I mean, I was like, I watched it after I watched the trailer for Furiosa after Civil War and a whole bunch of the other really depressing the world has gone to shit kind of movies, and I'm like, oh, am I really in for another post-apocalyptic view of how horrible human beings can be to each other? This sort of sense of just impending, we're all going to kill each other that's coming out of the films of this year. I'm like, I'm so exhausted by it, and I just want some hope and love and people being kind and just.
Have you heard of this movie? If I think it might be up your
You
street.
heard of this movie, the Garfield movie?
But then I saw it was Anya Taylor-Joy and Chris Hemsworth, and then I was seeing the editing and the vibe of George Miller, and I was like, okay, by the time this gets here, I'm definitely going to want to see this. So I'm excited. I am on board, and the fact that it looks like they're going to Bullet Town and Gasoline. Is it Gasoline Town or Gas Town or Guzzle Town or whatever? I love the fact that they're getting into those places that were mentioned in Fury Road, and we're going to see a bit more of that world building.
I've got something you'll love here, right? So, in I think it was just before Fury Road. It might have been just after it. There was a PS4 game.
Yeah.
That Mad Max, the PS4 game, right? Chris Hemsworth's character in Furiosa debuted in the video game. How cool is that for keeping true to your world building? Right? How cool is that? For those wondering what that is, I once delivered that line in a promotional video for a job I was at. I just think that's so interesting because you don't need to do that. No one played the game. You don't, but I think it speaks to how serious George Miller takes it. That he's being and part of the lore will be relevant for this movie. I don't know what to think of this movie, though, because Mad Max Fury Road, obviously, probably the most important film of the last 10 years still. I would actually regard myself as the world's #2 fan of Mad Max Fury Road.
We'll accept you.
I saw it once in the cinema. Can you believe it?
I saw it twice. I'm the second, AJ. You're the third. I think George Miller, an incredibly intelligent filmmaker, and then it gets announced Furiosa's his next film, announced very soon after Fury Road, I believe. And it was sort of okay, interesting direction. I'm not sure if this is something I would necessarily call a slam dunk. Follow up your massive blockbuster, critical, and awards success with something similar.
Well, I say that because Mad Max's 1 through 4 feel like they're from different universes. They are all such different movies that doing a spin-off prequel feels a little against the flow of what has made the franchise.
It's like when Christopher McQuarrie did two fucking
Mission Impossibles. Yeah. And I think that that. And also, prequels have bad reputations, etc., etc. And then also the amount of time it took for this, again, similar to what we're saying about Dune, it's is the world... How different do you reckon 2024 is from 2015? Do you reckon it's different enough that this will surely not see the same success as Fury Road? I wonder... Yeah, I wonder if it's, and also I also thought outside of Chris Hemsworth in the trailer, who I thought looked really interesting and is playing such a, like, seeing Chris Hemsworth play like a gross Aussie bloke is like, okay, interesting. Outside of that,
And also being like him being like an older mentor character rather than being like he's shifted into Obi-Wan rather than Luke, you know?
yeah, well, I think he's the villain in the film actually.
Oh, sure, but he's the different generation.
Evil
you know?
Obi-Wan, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I will say, like, the trailer outside of Chris Hemsworth, I was a little dubious on. I think the CGI looks a little unfinished, especially compared to how amazing Fury Road looks. So a little bit trepidatious. And also his George Miller's Genie movie wasn't received that well, I think, as well. And I was like, oh, damn, I thought he was a slam dunk, but I don't know. I'm saying cautiously optimistic.
Not a genie.
Apologies.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to Garfield. I think, you know, Chris Pratt has really proven
Very
his
talented
worth as a voice actor, and you know, we finally meet Garfield's dad, played by Samuel L. Jackson, and he like kicks him off a train or something, and yeah, I just think, you know, where could this go wrong?
First of all, weird to like Samuel Jackson as Chris Pratt's father is a very interesting decision. But I'd also say, like, I think Garfield, and I feel like this might not be too controversial, I feel like Garfield is like the worst guaranteed to make money intellectual property, right? Like, I don't care about Garfield. I'm not, you know, like
I certainly don't care about his dad.
Garfield has just like cemented its place in pop culture and is so pervasive, you know, it's like a weed across pop culture. And like, I don't care. Like, it's something that my granddad was into, you know, so I can't imagine like the next generation are that into Garfield, or have they sowed the seeds with, I think, like, Garfield, the Nickelodeon show, like, or something like that?
Just transcends that kind of thing.
Interesting, isn't it? I don't know.
Like as a character, like, there's nothing like the character is made for a 3 to 5 frame cartoon strip, like, sort of like set up and pay off. You know, like, it's like you need to know about the character that he is fat, lazy, and loves specific foods and hates
Mondays.
The dog.
And Mondays.
Like,
and Mondays,
that's
Jeremy. He hates.
Oh yeah, so
dot,
yeah.
Dot,
so
the dog.
Yeah.
His
like,
famous catchphrase: "I hate the dog."
But it's just like that's not. It doesn't create a beloved protagonist. You know, it's just like he's the opposite of yes and as a character. He's like, I have these very specific things that I like, and I have a lot of things that I really don't like, which include moving anywhere. Like, you know, and it's just like
Mondays.
Yes.
Tell me what I don't like the dog.
I also think that, like, while I'm sure in the probably millions of Garfield comic strips that have been written in the past 50, 40 years, or however old it is, it's like Space Jam 2, where it's like, I don't need to feel sorrow for Bugs Bunny sacrificing his life for his friends. It's like, I don't need to see depth to Garfield's character. I don't want to know why he's the way he is and who his dad is. And also, you know, this was the same problem when Chris Pratt was cast as Mario. Is this not a character with an iconic voice? I feel like the Lorenzo Music / Bill Murray voice, it's like, it's not, and here's another actor's spin on it. It's like, no, this is what Garfield sounds like now. Like, I know it's not obviously not from the comic strip, but it's like how, like, the Harry Potter theme music is now inextricably tied to Harry Potter broadly books. Yeah, exactly. Like, it's now associated with the books, not just the movies.
I don't know. Like, I'm happy to see a new spin. I guess I'm less of a traditionalist.
A new spin on Garfield.
Like, I know, AJ, you're quite often, you know, this is the way things are done, so this is the way they got to stay.
Exactly.
Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. We've wasted a lot of time on the Garfield movie, so make it snappy, AJ.
Listen, who's the director?
Wes Ball, who did Maze Runner
Wes
films.
Ball did the Maze Runner films. He's coming into this reboot Planet of the Apes series, a trilogy, Richard, which we, for those who don't know, have ranked in the top 3 on our
second or
every
third,
franchise we've ever watched. That trilogy is really, really strong and has directorial voices behind it that are pretty good at that sort of thing. Wes Ball has not proven himself to be as a accomplished director, and he has been attached to the production hell that is, or the development hell that is the Legend of Zelda movie coming out in presumably a couple years. And it's like Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is his chance to prove to the world that he is not a mistake for the Zelda director, I think. Because the Maze Runner movies don't do anything for his reputation.
Clout.
Well, they do something for it. They trash it. They bring it down.
Nice.
And Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, like, already kind of a sequel I'm not clamoring for. Like, I kind of
It's set
don't
like
necessarily
a century later or something as well.
Right, I guess that might help it then. But yeah, very risky move, very unproven director, I think. And yeah. Don't know.
I just think that, like, unless the trailer is hiding something from us, I also think a very risky director and also the worst possible conceptual version of this type of film to come in on and try to make successful, because all of the previous, like, modern ones have had audience surrogates that resemble like human beings at the level of civilization and kind of intelligence, and
each one has an A-lister human character in it.
Yeah, but also that we retain all our faculties. We are the humans, essentially. And this film being 100 years later, unless they're gonna, the first Planet of the Apes was set in this kind of world where the human beings were the animals and apes were the humans, kind of thing. But you had the human surrogates who had come from Earth and crash landed, so they were the audience surrogates of, like, these are the humans that we can relate to and we can see ourselves through. If they're just going to have a whole bunch of humans that are basically downtrodden and animalistic, and we're supposed to look at the apes as the ones who are civilized, and there's no audience surrogate for a human that we identify with, that's a hard call.
I reckon the closest thing is Planet of the Apes 3. I can't remember what that one was called. Escape from the Planet of the Apes, maybe? Yeah. That, Jeremy, if you haven't seen, is about the main apes from the first film go back in time to modern day Earth, right? So that was the, like, reverse, right? So now it's the intelligent apes in the planet of the humans. And in that context, I think apes being unambiguously the main characters works. If it's just apes, I wonder how easy that will be to watch.
Yeah. Also, just for the record, Kingdom of Planet of the Apes has moved 2 weeks up, so it comes out 2 weeks before those other 2 movies because it wanted to avoid competition with them.
But we should have talked about it before them.
In June, we've finally got the Ballerina, which is the John Wick spin-off starring Ana de Armas, is coming out, which has Lance Reddick in it. It was filmed quite a wee while ago. I believe John Wick is also in it.
Wow. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about this. I feel like the Continental TV show or limited series or whatever it was, like, really kind of, like, tanked what I thought would be the interest in expanding the John Wick cinematic universe, because just no one bothered with it. And it's like, oh, okay, I wonder if a movie spin-off will be any more successful. Is it Chad Stahelski directing it?
Len Wiseman is directing it.
I reckon this is going to flop because
It did
of that.
Underworld, Live Free or Die Hard, Total Recall 2012.
Okay. I'm beginning to get the picture of what Ballerina will be like as a film. Yeah, I don't know. I will be interested. I'm not rooting for it or against it, but I'll be interested to see if this is, like, as big as John Wick 4 was.
Yeah. It's set between 3 and 4, by the way, for the record.
Right.
So we've got a film called The Watchers coming out. Not a lot of information about, other than the fact that it's directed by Ashana Night Shyamalan. So another year for Nepo
Isn't it interesting that she's also Night? She also has Night in her name. You know, if it was just Ashana Shyamalan, It's like, yeah, I'm not questioning who that is. You know, like, just to be clear, it's the same family. So we don't know anything about this.
Not really. There's mysterious creatures stalk a young artist and three strangers in an Irish forest. Starring.
What do you guys
Dakota
reckon?
Fanning.
Do you reckon this has like? Is this interesting that it's
Well, I mean,
the Shyamalan legacy extending,
Yeah.
and what will she be like as a storyteller compared
If she's better.
to me? Yeah,
Yeah.
well, maybe that's what I'm saying.
It's
yeah.
funny because I saw like I'm pretty sure it's like sort of interview with him or something, or maybe even with her, where it's talking about like since she was born, she was like on the set of her dad's films, and so it's like very much someone who's grown up around it, but. Yeah, we
Which,
don't know
if
much
this was a director who had no misses, that'd be a very exciting situation, wouldn't it? But it's like, yeah, I grew up on film sets were my life, and I was able to just study and get to know filmmaking through my auteur father, M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah. Some of my best memories as a kid were on the set of The Lady in the Lake.
Oh gosh.
All right, so next up we've got Inside Out 2. We've got a little teaser trailer for this showing off Maya Hawke as one of the new emotions. Yeah, it's an interesting world to return to, I think. And it's funny because the obvious thing about like getting new emotions is like, well, we have seen inside her mum's head and her dad's head, and they didn't have the new emotions. So is Riley the first person to experience these emotions? But they've said that it's like they were... inside the other adult's head was like reflecting Riley's current view of the world.
Interesting.
So that's their
said,
workaround.
Horrible retcon.
Yeah.
I would have said every human has like another base of secondary emotions, and you just didn't see them in the main hub. Yeah, look, I think Inside Out is probably my favorite Pixar movie. I very boastfully and very proudly have like a newish Pixar film as one that I put above the others. I think it's probably no, it's not the last great Pixar movie. I think there've been great ones since, but
Yeah, like Lightyear.
Yeah, The Good Dinosaur.
yeah, great job, guys. What's been the worst one since 2014? Shit. It's not that this is a world that I don't think needs to be returned to. On the contrary, I think it makes sense if you were like presumably Pixar have to do a sequel every couple of years. Presumably that's part of their business model now. And Inside Out, I think, is actually the obvious one to choose. But yeah, I mean, I just wonder, will the same kind of like majesty be matched in this one? Like I'm a little less... I tend to be more interested in and more hopeful about original Pixar movies than sequels, even though I like a lot of their sequels. Quite a lot.
I think what's interesting is that like you're definitely gonna get the humor side of things. There's definitely a lot to mine in terms of the sort of the puberty teenage experience and like hormones flushing into the body and like, and when in the teaser trailer, when like all of those little like beings came in to kind of like destroy things and then rebuild the console, I thought they were hormones. I thought like those characters were like
what
the
a
physical
great
embodiment
idea! What a great
of
idea!
hormones.
Yeah.
But then they never said that they were hormones, and I was just like, oh, okay. And then when like there was a new one introduced, I initially thought that it was going to be. I was just like, oh, but hormone isn't an emotion, and so then anxiety. But like I think you're going to get a lot of humor, but I don't know that you're going to get that same depth of feeling from like a Bing Bong kind of moment, because I think you've already done that. You've already said goodbye to childhood. You've said goodbye to kind of the silly, the playful things. You kind of stole that moment from your teenage section the first movie. And I'm like, what's going to be the thing that what's going to be that deeper thing? And look, it's Pixar, so they've still got talented people there. I don't discount them from doing it, but it's funny that I can immediately see the humor, but I don't know if I can see where the depth might come from.
Yeah. Have you watched Big Mouth, Jeremy?
Yeah.
Because I reckon that's why they couldn't do a hormone storyline. It's because
that's true.
It seems like
so similar to Big
one
Mouth.
of the emotions should have been horny though. But
it would be great.
Also,
if it
interestingly,
was.
just behind the scenes thing, that so like Bill Hader's kind of been the new it guy for for Pixar that like he's been in all of their most recent films, but he's not returning from this, even though it's like one of his few lead roles was in the first one. Apparently Amy Poehler is got $5 million to return to as Joy, with a bunch of bonuses as well, and the rest of the cast, including Mindy Kaling and Bill Hader, were offered $100,000 each, which is like 2% of Amy Poehler's salary, and they both walked and said no. So you've got Tony Hale is playing. Phyllis Smith and Lewis Black are back as Sadness and Anger, but you've got Tony Hale as Fear and Liza Lapera as Disgust.
Is Tony Hale not a better casting for Fear than Bill Hader? I reckon he is.
Yeah.
I could see that working.
Yeah, it definitely worked. It sounded similar enough in the trailer. Anyway, Bad Boys 4 Life is also coming out in June. It's of course not called Bad Boys for Life because they've already used that title on the third film.
Imagine if this one was called Bad Boys Forever.
Yeah.
And it's like, what are you doing? I don't know. I would say Bad Boys for Life, I think, is easily the best Bad Boys movie.
Yeah.
So I guess I don't necessarily have any
It's the same
reason
director's
to
coming
doubt
back for the fourth one.
The Batgirl guys, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
If they had any cojones, they would have cast Chris Rock as the villain.
Yeah, I don't think Chris Rock would have done it, to be honest, but...
That would be the only way that I'd watch this movie.
So there's a film called The Bike Riders also coming out in June, which is like the only reason I've heard about it is it's like this Jeff Nichols drama with like Austin Butler, Jodie Comer, and it was like premiered at Telluride Film Festival, and then it switched distributors, and it was like, this movie is just not going to come out. Disney's fucking stupid, all this stuff. But now it's like it is coming out, so. I guess those people that were upset about
and
it
I'm so excited for it.
Yeah, those people that were like, now actually have a chance to put their money where their mouth is and go see it. I don't know an awful lot about it, but we do also have A Quiet Place Day 1, which is...
I don't know how to feel about this franchise. I feel like I've just totally like 180'd on this franchise. I only saw the first film, and I reckon we have talked about what I'm about to say 10 times on the podcast since A Quiet Place came out. But it is a movie where you go home and you're looking at in the fridge and you're like, that didn't really hold up logically. Like, there's so many things in there. And then because of COVID, A Quiet Place Part 2 got delayed to the point where to this day
still haven't seen it.
I still haven't. Have you guys seen it?
No.
No.
Isn't that crazy? Like it's. I don't dislike it enough to not watch the sequel, but I just never got round to it. And I often credit that as being the movie that stopped me feeling like I had to see every blockbuster.
Yeah.
Is A Quiet Place Part 2. A Quiet Place Day 1. Maybe this will answer some of the problems. The plot holes.
It's interesting. So it's not John Krasinski. It's an original idea by John Krasinski, but Michael Sarnowski. This is his second film because he wrote and directed Pig, which just got me excited for the film.
Oh, I haven't seen Pig, but I've wanted to watch it
Pig's
for a long
so
time.
good.
Yeah.
But yeah, to finish off the first half of the year, we've got another Chapter 1 movie, Horizon, an American saga, which is... I remember when the trailer for the teaser for this came out announcing that it was like 2 films, and it was just like, what? Kevin Costner is directing and starring in a 2-part epic Western film coming out about 6 weeks apart.
What is this going to be? Is this looking good, or is this? I haven't heard anything.
There's
about
not really
this.
much information about it, but I can. You got Kevin Costner, Sienna Miller, Sam Worthington, Jenny Malone, Michael Rooker, Danny Houston, Jeff Fahey, Jamie Campbell Bower, Giovanni Ribisi, Thomas Hayden Church. Decent cast.
I feel like you really buried the lead with names I recognise there. After Kevin Costner, I was like, I don't know any of these people. They're like Jeff Fahey. I'm like, oh my god. Oh, okay. Who's directing it?
Kevin Costner.
Interesting. Has he directed before?
I believe so. Yeah, I think he didn't he direct Waterworld. No, he
Kevin Costner directed Dances with Wolves.
he won Best Director for it.
Wow. Oh wow. Okay. I don't know. Like, yeah, I need to. I in this podcast, I've learnt that I reckon there have been 3 to 5 trailers you guys have talked about that I didn't even know were out. So it's hard for me to judge that just at this moment. But
man, AJ, I really hate it when you come to this podcast not having watched enough to actually really talk about.
Yeah.
It really brings it down.
Yeah.
I bet.
He didn't direct Waterworld, but that was like a famous. He produced it. Was a famous Kevin Costner passion project, but he hasn't directed since Open Range in 2003. But yeah, it's interesting. Like,
I thought you meant open season for a second.
Yeah.
I was like, "Jeez,
Home
did
on
he
the
do
Range?
Open season? Did you home on the range?"
over the hedge. But yeah, I don't know. It's,
This is a very specific niche of kids movies
Yeah.
that I don't know what we're describing.
but yeah, it's interesting. It's a yeah. I think it will probably do well with critics and dads.
Mhm.
But
Is doing chapter 1 and chapter 2 movies set only months apart?
well, I think they're
Is that
set quite a few years because it's pre and post Civil War.
Sorry, released only months apart. Is that a new trend we're seeing happening here, or is this just what we used to call a mini-series? Or
Yeah, it's a 2-part theatrical event according to the poster.
theatrical? Did you say one's pre and post Civil War?
Well, it says it's set pre and post Civil War. It doesn't say necessarily that chapter 1 is pre,
that's-
chapter 2 is post.
Ah, okay. If it is, I think that's very intriguing. I think that is a narratively justified reason to.
I
have
think we
part
should
one
have to
and
wait
part
the
two.
length of the Civil War to see it finish, though.
Yeah. How long was the Civil War?
It's like
We'll
6
find
weeks,
out
isn't
when
it?
we watch Alex Garland's film.
Yeah, it looks to be about 2.5 hours.
Oh yeah, so that's wrapping up the first half of the year. What's your most anticipated for the first half of the year, gang?
It's got to be Furiosa, right?
Yeah, it has to be.
Like, well, no,
June 2. June 2, definitely.
Maybe it is, but I would say Furiosa is the one that I am anticipating liking the most. Is that okay to say, or like it's not necessarily? I think the People's Joker maybe intrigues me more.
Yeah,
but,
right.
Yeah.
Interesting first half of the year. Nothing I'm super excited about. Not a lot of superhero films. That's why.
That's what we're missing.
Yeah.
That's what we're missing.
Yeah,
Jeremy, what's your?
Marvel only has one big one this year. That's Deadpool 3, but we'll talk about that next week.
Yeah, nice.
Oh, I mean, definitely June 2. Like, I will probably make an entire event out of that and go to whichever cinema is doing like a double feature of June 1.
Good
Then
idea.
like, if they're going to do like, because man, I pine for the days where I used to go to like the midnight premieres of all the Lord of the Rings films, and like they'd always have like the sort of the 1 or 2 or whatever films beforehand, and then you'd like roll right into the part 3 at 12 o'clock, and you just feel like absolute trash for days. It was awesome.
Did you see the Nolan trilogy when Dark Knight Rises came out?
Yes.
So
yep,
all
that's
three
actually
of
the last
us-
one that I did.
All 3 of us were in the same cinema there, but neither of us had met. Neither me or Jeremy had met Richard at that point.
Wow, that's awesome. In Hoyt's Rickerton.
Yeah, and the same thing happened with the 2012 Flight of the Conchords concert as well. We were all in the same
Oh,
room,
yes.
but hadn't met Richard yet.
Wow.
Slightly more people in that room, though.
For sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, what a strange tangent to end the episode on. Let us know in the comments, everybody, what your most anticipated film of the first half of 2024 is.
I don't want to fucking hear anything about July onwards.
Yeah, if you even mention July, I'm deleting the Discord. Speaking of the Discord, if you do want to jump in there's a link in the show notes. You can come and talk to us. You can also follow us.
We have very, very specific rules for your participation.
You can also follow us on all the social media places that are all slowly dying as they did their damage on the world and the psyches of young people, and now no one wants to use them anymore, but everyone's still got the side effects of growing up raised by social media. So yeah, we're on all of those. And if you want to throw us some money as well, we're on Patreon at patreon.com/cultpopture, where you can also give us something to talk about in the post-credit scene coming at you after this music ends. Gentlemen, we'll see you next week. What's the first movie we're going to talk about next week? It is
Despicable Me 4.
Despicable Me 4. Great. Awesome. Looking forward to it.
Can't wait.
All right. Alrighty, welcome along to the post-credit scene. This is a segment at the end of each episode. If you donate $5 or more over at patreon.com/Popture, you get to give us something to talk about in this, the post-credit scene. Richard, who's it from and what is it?
Today's comes to us from Vincent DiBiase, who says, just finished the Scooby-Doo episode. What non-puppet franchise that you have covered before could pull off a puppet remake or spin-off?
Okay, now I think we should not go the...
Muppets.
What movie would you remake with the Muppets if you've recast except for one character? Everyone's had that conversation. Let's talk about a IP. Let's each suggest an IP that would be interesting to see as a puppet show.
Yeah, I reckon Horizon
Like
and
an
American
in-person
Saga.
live puppet show.
I don't know. Yeah, sure. Or a movie, whatever works. What'd you say, Richard?
It's lost to the shuffle now, but I said Horizon and American Saga.
Let's go. I'm gonna go. Okay. I know this kind of is the Muppet idea that I just didn't want to do.
I know I said
But
you guys weren't allowed to do it.
I wonder, maybe if not literally, but a film inspired by like Knives Out, like a murder mystery
Yeah,
with
yeah.
puppets. I think is something that I would like, an Agatha Christie style murder mystery. In fact, how about it's just an Agatha Christie adaptation,
Yeah,
a
yeah.
Poirot movie where everyone's a puppet? I think that'd be interesting.
That's cool, yeah.
With Miss Piggy as the detective.
They're not literally Muppets, Jeremy. I just said
Yeah, I think
I thought you said, I know that I'm not supposed to, but I'm just
I'm
suggesting
just too
this.
tempting.
it's good that I like that Ryan Johnson though has responded to like the Muppets idea of doing a Knives Out film with just Benoit Blanc and Muppets. That he's I think he's sort of said that it's like, oh, the rights are too complicated and we couldn't work out this and that, but
It feels more like an episode that would be like a Daniel Craig starring Muppets show
yeah, exactly.
episode than a Knives Out movie.
Yeah. I think you want something with like a lot of talking and stuff. Have you guys seen The Sunset Limited?
No.
It's just Samuel L. Jackson and Tommy Lee Jones, and Samuel L. Jackson to stop Tommy Lee Jones from killing himself, and it's a Cormac McCarthy play which was adapted into a film, and it's just the two of them talking, and I'd like to see that with puppets.
Sorry, the question that Vincent asked specifically said what franchise that you guys have covered on
I
pod
did not see that.
would you like to see?
Ah, okay.
Not just some random movie that only you've seen.
Let's go Ace Ventura.
Let's go.
I got too into our series and went, yeah, that one.
Let's go Fear Street.
Okay, Jeremy, what's your...
I want like a horror film with puppets would be fun.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to say, just because the idea of Back to the Future on Broadway is fascinating to me. I'd love to see a very, very complex, like Punch and Judy style Back to the Future.
Nice.
Yeah, cool. I love it.
Yeah.
All right, cut.
Cut, prep.